Welcome to the Season 3 finale of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life. In this episode, we sit down with Andrew Tull, a seasoned entrepreneur, connector, and community leader who believes in building deep, authentic relationships and living a life of purpose. We explore Andrew's journey from his early aspirations to become president to leading a global tech firm and launching his signature Gathering of Friends. We also dive into mentorship, money, and how a simple napkin sketch at age 21 helped shape Andrew's life philosophy. If you're looking for inspiration on how to align your values, build real connections, and give back meaningfully, this is your episode. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life. Season 3, Episode 12.
Wow.
Finale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The finale.
There's a comment in there about ending with the worst. I'll say we're going to end.
Well, you know what? There you go. Glad to have you on, Andrew.
Thank you.
Get into who you are and all of that in a second. And Gloria, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, happy to be here.
So just a brief introduction on what you do today and the kind of the hobbies that you're doing and all the kind of work that you're doing, Gloria.
Sure. So I work in wealth management, so financial advising. But I like to say that it's really more than just numbers and math and finance, but really helping people create clarity on their vision towards what they really want. And I'm also writing a book. So I've been interviewing many business owners and entrepreneurs in the local area and just in Texas in general, really trying to figure out or create a roadmap for entrepreneurs. And with these interviews, the purpose of these interviews is really to create, really to find out what are their struggles, successes, and how did they overcome that, or reach their goals. So this book is really meant to educate this and future generations. So this generation that we're in now will have the most entrepreneurs out of any previous generation. So most newest entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that even, with that fact, there are no credible or really great resources out there to teach them. And so with things moving so fast, with so much information out there, I'm like, well, maybe I can be that credible source that create this book, and it's going to be based on experiences of entrepreneurs. So
love that, because that is a part of mentorship that is really needed. When we last, I mentioned this in our last couple of podcasts, but when we last went and taught at A&M, we go every semester to go do a guest lecture there with Founding Up. And when we asked students, there was 250 students this time around, when we asked them, what are the top 5 things they want help with, an AI to help them with? And the very top was finance. And to your point, not that finance isn't taught out there, it's just there's not really great resources from a very young age to pay attention to that. So it's like really kind of trying to figure things out. And one of my, when I was working in finance, one of my biggest glaring things that I saw was that it's easy to get in debt when you're young. When you're, I think I got my first JCPenney credit card when I was like
JCPenney, though.
16. It was
16?
Yeah, they gave it to me before I was even 18.
Didn't.
Yeah, they did. I just got one of the mail. I was like, okay, I'm going to go see if and I knew the law back then.
Trousers.
I knew that I wasn't supposed to have one until I was 18. But it ended up in my thing. It was like $500 credit limit, and I used it, and it worked. So I was like, oh, cool. So I've had one even before 18.
wow.
All that to say is there's never been really solid education. I took a finance class when I was in 9th grade, something like that. It was how to write a check. But there's
check.
Exactly.
Who uses check?
Exactly. So there's so much more to finance, and that is a big thing. So the fact that that's what's being called for the most, we wanted to get an expert in-house to, as we have financial related questions, or especially starting a business, it's a great way to learn from others and who's done what already. So that's a great thing to mentor on. And our guest mentor, Andrew, will you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Happy to do so. I'm still railing a little bit from the two writing checks and JCPenney credit card anachronistic examples, which speaks to the fact that I know that. So I'm obviously old. I think I had them. I still write checks occasionally. They are a thing. I'm still not sure why. But fascinated about where that can lead the conversation today. I am, from a work perspective, I own a couple of companies. I'm a partner in a global software development firm located here in Austin. We've got 300 folks located around the world working on, as of this morning, 97 different projects, which is cool and unique and fun and challenging and everything else associated with that. I also have my own consulting practice that I've had since the late 90s, where I typically love to help folks from a business development or strategy perspective or launch new products, technologies, capabilities. And my favorite thing, and I know that Dan is intimately aware of this, I love to connect folks. You put a smart, talented, unique person with another smart, talented, unique person, and those two souls coming together will typically find some common ground, regardless of age, economic status, who's done what or whatever. But if you've got a pure pay it forward giving type attitude, it's amazing what can happen when, again, you put a couple of talented individuals together. And that is one of my absolute favorite things to do. And I get to do that with a number of organizations I'm a part of or boards that I'm on with Texas Search and Rescue, Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and Austin Bridge Builders Alliance, each in a very, very different format. But I'm a very big fan of giving back to not only the community, but to individuals, because you never know what soul you might touch that is able to make multiple ripples from that.
So typically from there, I go into like, what did you want to be at your 18 or 16? But before we go into that question, what you just touched on, I think is really important in that the fact that you are on so many boards and this spirit of connecting. Can you remember the first time you thought that you found value in doing that? Do you remember like what led you that down that path?
I distinctly remember, and it actually, ironically enough, ties in with your question. I was 21 at the time and was meeting with a mentor of mine. I don't know how or when, but in my late teens, and partially because my dad was in the military, we moved a lot. So every 3 to 4 years, it was reset relative to relationships.
New friends.
Everything. New geography, new everything. And I think that part of that allowed me to understand the importance of a relationship. And I really did learn early on that, and I still have at the tender age of 54, I still don't know anything. I really don't.
Right.
A lot of what I learn is from other folks when they have made mistakes, their life experiences. And I distinctly remember being asked by Ken Nucky, a mentor of mine, when I was 21 years old. We sat down together and had the conversation where we were at a restaurant and he pushed a napkin across to me and said, "What's most important to you in your life?" And I'm like, I don't know.
At 21, who knows?
At 21.
Right? Exactly.
Making it to 22.
Answering the question right.
Yeah. How do I get, this is a guy that I really respect.
Right.
And what do I want? So then I thought about it, and I drew a triangle. Ironically, I still have this napkin. If I'd have thought about it, I would have brought it today.
You should frame it.
I still have it. That's an excellent idea, Natalie. I think I might do that. And for me personally, everybody's got their own triangle or square or circle or whatever else it might be. But for me, it was God, family, and friends. So a lot of people have some variation of that. But I spoke to him about the importance of that. And that became a focal point for me of areas that I personally want to focus on in my life. And on the friends and the family side, you'll notice work wasn't in there.
Yeah, I was about to say money wasn't in there.
Money wasn't in there. Work wasn't in there.
Okay.
They're both something that permeates so much of my life, and I spend so much time on them. Yet I do that because of the 3 parts of that triangle.
Right.
How do I spend more time?
That's a great viewpoint
to do that? So for me, I know that just completely mixed up your entire question, Stan.
No,
but,
that was exactly what I wanted to know, because from the very get-go, like, I'm involved in these things. I'm like, cool. Part of what we're the purpose of the podcast and just kind of the message out there is reach out to mentorship. And guess what? Mentors want to give back. I mean, it's this desire. It's not like so many people that are young or at some point in your life, you think, well, I don't want to bother someone. I don't want to take their time. And it's just this feeling of like not adequate to ask. When the message of this podcast, every one of our guests is like, no, we want to give. Like, we are here to share the knowledge. And so as you led with that, I do these things, I just wanted to illustrate that came from a want inside at some point. And as young as 21, sounds like it started, like you were really crystal in what your life was going to be about, crystal clear on what your life was going to be about. And giving is part of that, building that relationship.
I love that your mentor also asked that, because what he was calling you to do is to identify your values. And once those are shored up and identified, then one can go forward with clarity and vision and intention. So that was really cool that he had you do that.
I'm a dad, and we have dad jokes and we have silly analogies. One of my silly analogies is bowling in an alley where the pins are hidden.
Okay.
So you know the purpose. Generally, if you know how to bowl, you take a ball, use your JCPenney card to get something. You use a ball and you throw it to go knock down pins, and you count the pins. If you can't see the lanes, much less where the pins are that you're aiming for, how are you knowing where to point yourself?
Right.
And for me, it's like bowling blind in an alley with the pins hidden. If you are able to get your directional compass point pointing to whatever your true north is based off your values and beliefs, the lane, not the lanes, are going to become more clear.
Right.
The 10 pins are going to be real clear. And if you've got a really good enough set of values and beliefs, you're going to get to play the ultimate bowling cheat game where you put up the little guardrails and there is no such thing as a gutter.
Right.
Throw the ball down and you're going to hit something. But having that directional sense and having those values and beliefs that are guiding that particular shot or set of shots, absolutely critical.
I love that. That's a really great analogy. Now,
That's a real.
well, and I was like, well, how about a dad joke now? Just for Natalie.
This is Dan and I's like Instagram relationship. Is just he sends me dad jokes in messages.
At some point, we talked about dad jokes. I'm like, and so now it's just my dad joke buddy. I send her stuff that I find.
It's great.
I'll just introduce you with my kiddos, and I will regale you with things that will bring you to tears. So brings them to tears in a different way, it seems.
Yeah, like, oh, Dad.
It sounds like at a very young age, 21, you had some good guidance and good mentor. And now the question is, now if you go back to 15, 16, what did Andrew Tull want to do at that age? Or what was there a direction? Because often, and a part B to that question is, what led you to get a mentor? Because that's kind of something, what we find is like 20% of people actually get mentors or actually see that as a value. So we're trying to bring awareness to that. So how did that come for you?
This is going to be, I'll try and keep a extraordinarily long story short. When I was 16, probably closer to 14 or 15, I thought I wanted to be president of the United States. Okay. How timely given what's just happened. Quickly realized, don't need to do that. Shortly thereafter, and it was 2, 3, 4 years after that, because I was involved in, and it still exists, the AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union, putting on some national sporting events with some ridiculous opportunities that I was given, I realized that later on in life, I wanted to create a sports foundation for kids to teach them the power of values, teamwork, working together, joint success, everything that's part of what that might look like. How you trace even a crooked, not even dotted line between president to sports foundation, I don't know. I'm just saying that this is exactly what it was. For me, what was interesting, though, is because of the opportunities that were presented to me when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I was able to meet with some unique and diverse, pretty significant business and other leaders that I'm convinced they took me on as a project because they're like, that's a good lump of clay right there. But I listened. I actively listened. And every single one of them said something along the lines of the importance of learning from somebody else's mistakes. Another individual, Jim Grau, who's now in Cincinnati, and was one of the senior leadership guys at Kappa Athletic Shoes. I'm going to go into the Wayback Machine.
I remember those.
The two triangles.
Is it AE?
Kaepa.
Okay, so I do know what you're talking about.
Going into the Wayback Machine. Jim was another great mentor of mine, and he suggested, again, way back when, get yourself a board of advisors. Not mentors, a board of advisors. People that you trust that are part of your inner circle. Preferably not family members.
Right.
Preferably somebody that you know you can not only implicitly trust, but that not only based off that trust, that they have what's best for your long-term being in mind. And also don't allow that individual to be a yes person.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Everything is a great idea.
Right.
No, Andrew, like the last 6 things you brought up, that's stupid. And why would you even think of that? And I'm using a gross analogy there, but having the type of folks that you can have real conversations with that will check you and ask you some hard questions directionally about, is that the right thing for you right now?
Yeah.
Or if you do that, what will your future 5 year from now, Andrew, come back to you with? Are you proud of that decision? Was that the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And so it was those kind of questions.
Wow. That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Your future self.
Right.
And having those type of folks, which again, I'll go back to that mold of clay, but this was a mold of clay that was actively listening.
Right.
And since in my 20s, I have had a very closely knit board of informal advisors that, depending upon the circumstance, and it's changed, it's evolved. Depending upon the circumstance, I will go to a Ken or a Jeff or a Jim, or my wife is a huge part of that, and say, I want to do this. What do you think?
Right.
And having an open, honest, hard conversation about the what ifs, the why nots, the can you, not the limitations, but the release of limitations that allows you to kind of see something forward. Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I want to stop you right now because you're going, and there's like 4 questions I already had for you. I'm like, before I forget the first one, I got to jump into these other questions. So first, I'm going to work backwards. Off of that, I want to make a distinction that a lot of times people will I got this business idea and I'm just going to ask anybody, right? And that is an entrepreneurial mistake I've learned from very day one. And the reason, and people get financial advice this way too. You'll have people like, oh, my neighbor said this, or my coworker said this. And so it's really important that the message today is that you selected individuals as a board of advisors that you trusted based on qualities, based on what you saw and those kind of things. So it's not just my neighbors, my coworker, my so-and-so. It's you've got to put some thought into who is going to be your trusted advisor. Who do you trust that can help you get to that next stage? And I just wanted, I love that you did that, but I also wanted to make that distinction between the quality of people that you pulled into your circle versus just, let me ask, because there is this mentality, I'm just going to ask the next guy and think about this group knowledge. And a lot of times that is wrong. How many times have we in any, whether it's entrepreneurial, well, you ask a person that's not an entrepreneur, doesn't have any vision, and they're going to be the naysayer. They might just not help you grow that vision or actually see and be qualified for that. So that's pretty important. Second thing I wanted to commend in what I heard was, and commend and say, like, kudos to you for being a listener at that point in time, because, there are not many 15-year-olds that will actually like be a sponge and absorb things, because there's a point in your life, and I think a lot of us go through this, where it's like, I know what's best. And it's that you've got to overcome that component to be able to then listen. I've found for myself, at whatever age I was, and I think for all of us, at some age, we'll be able to snap and say, I need to listen, because that's where that knowledge is. So kudos to you for having it at such a, 15, 16.
I don't know if it was 15 or 16, and I still can always work on my listening skills.
Yeah.
However, self-improvement, always trying to do, yesterday was a decent day. What can I do today that's going to make today a little bit of a better day type thing? And that's impossible to do from a daily basis.
Yeah.
But at least taking the long view of how are the impacts that I'm going to have. Like today, as an example. I've known you, Dan, for I don't know how many years. Just having the opportunity to meet Gloria and Natalie. And my first question is, I want to hear about your lives. I want to hear your story. Why? Because it's unique. And Dan knows this. I've got one question that I always like to ask folks. And it's the easiest question on the planet. And this took me a long time to learn. I learned this in 2005, 2006. How can I help you? Is the question. It's an easy question. But if it doesn't come from a sense of authenticity and some degree of want to follow up, because it doesn't mean if you ask the question that you can immediately solve everybody's problems. And by the way, I'm a guy, that's what we do, or supposedly that's what we're supposed to do. Whatever. No, it's not. Sometimes the what can I do for you means being present and listening. There isn't an action above and beyond that to take. And that to me is an extremely important lesson that I continually need to reaffirm to myself. So if everybody asked the question, what can I do to help you? And then actually wanted to genuinely follow up on it, it'd be scary cool to see what this world would do.
I want to just comment on that. I get real uncomfortable with that when that question is asked to me. But when I talk to you, I mean, just knowing you, I know where you're coming from. But it can also become, in a networking setting, this like transactional thing, right? And so the other side of that is when you do find people like yourself that truly that's what drives them, is how to connect. Like, I know this about you, and we'll talk about some of the events that you do. But the other side is thinking about, and for the audience to know, is you have to think that question on for yourself first before you go out there and start networking, because a lot of times you don't have that answer. And if it's a transactional answer, you're missing an opportunity, right? If it's like, hey, can you introduce me to one person that I blah, 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 just like what is taught in networking settings, you're missing the boat. Because an individual that it's much more about building a relationship with an individual and having that long-term friendship, so that, as you pointed out, that answer doesn't always come today. It might be 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, where that connection happens, but you have to build that relationship. If you just have a transactional answer and then walk away and that relationship doesn't develop, you miss so much. But knowing, again, where your heart is and the triangle, and here's why I'm doing this. Like, it took me, like when we first met years and years ago and you asked that, I was like, oh, I don't know what to say, right? Clarity is important, but sometimes it's like, and I've asked, I think the last time you asked me this, I said, I don't have a thing. I just want to have lunch with you.
And that's perfectly fine. And I think that's part of it, is And you used a term that is one of my least desirable words, network. When people say, oh, I've got this networking event, the immediate thing that I think of is transactional.
Right.
Speed dating.
Here's my card. What can you do for me today?
Right.
I don't care at all about that.
Exactly.
I truly don't.
Right.
We use this term of everybody's so busy, so many things going on, and you lose the authenticity of one human soul connecting to another human soul.
Yes.
And I do it on a regular, I fail at this every single day, just to be clear. I know where I want to be, and I'm still so far behind from where that is. And, because I just don't like using the word but, because nobody listens to whatever. It's and as long as I stay aware of the fact that it's not networking,
right?
It's authentically establishing, ideally, a long-term relationship. Dan, I know that we're going to be friends for life. Does that mean we're going to hang out and go to movies and catch the football game or whatever every weekend? No. And it doesn't have to.
Right.
We can catch up over a coffee, a lunch, a Zoom. Don't like that as much as I do the in-person.
Right. Amen
but we
to
can
that.
catch up like we did at Culinary Dropouts and spend an hour and 15 minutes talking about ourselves, talking about our kids, talking about the things that we're doing, the people that we're helping. And for me, it's those breaks in the day of what are other potential transactional business conversations. I need this, get this. Okay, who's doing this by when? Okay, cool, great, break. No.
It's the recharge.
It is. It refills my cup to be able to have those other business is not hard conversations. People make it hard. So if you're having that chance, and again, for me, authentically connecting with another human or set of humans, I get so jazzed with that.
Yeah.
I've noticed two things. A couple times you've talked about connecting two souls together. And I also recognize when you said, oh, I didn't know what to say when he asked, how can I help you? And a lot of times, and I'm not speaking for you, but a lot of times, because I've been in those shoes, it's because I don't feel worthy of accepting help from something, or I don't know how I can give back in an equal way. And we had Mark Nathan on the show, who's a super connector.
Love Mark.
He's a great guy. And how he ended up helping convince people to utilize his connection ability and gift is by saying, okay, if you want to do something for me, then just introduce me to one very interesting person. And so I like that. Does that ever happen to you?
All the time. And Mark, I know Mark, and we've had this conversation. And I get asked, and Dan is good at doing this, at turning around the question relative to, so what can I do for you? And because I'm asking, I believe it makes sense for me to answer, if there's a need that I have, share it. The worst thing that can happen is Dan can say, I don't know anything you're talking about, go away, which he won't. But the worst thing that he could say is, I'm sorry, I can't help you. The best thing he could say is, I know just the solve to that problem. Anything else is in between. And oh, by the way, the worst thing he could say, I'm absolutely not any worse off than before I answered the question.
Right.
So the net is a total positive, whichever direction it's going to go. Yeah. So being open, and to your point, Natalie, about having people be able to, the unworthy piece, I know I talk to so many folks who, for whatever reason, unworthiness, self-esteem, I don't feel comfortable, that's so out of my comfort zone, I'm not, I don't, I can't. Yeah, you actually can. And yeah, you actually are. If people can just put down their blinders, remove their own limitations, or remove their own self-doubt, take a step and just try and ask the question. see where it leads.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the message I'm getting is the discovery, right? Because you don't know if it's like you. I don't go networking events. It's just not one of those things. I've done so many of those throughout my history. And it just was, it was just a transactional. I never got anything of value. I was looking for deep relationships, right? And I saw that so many people there were, early in sales, and they just wanted to it was a numbers thing versus versus quality. Quantity over quality is what it seemed like to me. And so when those types of like, how can I help you? It seems so transactional to me. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But again, going back to, when you ask it from an authentic place and being authentic, then it's a completely different meaning to the individual. And kudos to you for having that triangle and having that be the principle of your life, not the other things. So the money and everything else, just that comes along. That's just a resource to what you're doing. But these are the things that really matter. And I wanted to bring up something that you do once or twice a year. I was telling Gloria about this before you showed up. It's like, Andrew does this thing once or twice a year. You got to ask him about it.
A big party.
I don't know about a big party. It's interesting. It's called A Gathering of Friends. And then the subtitle is Those Known and Those Soon to Be Known. And that's not meant to be pithy or catchy or anything. It's just what has evolved over the last 13 or 14 years of doing this. And I had thought that I was going to get one done in October, November. Life had other plans that did not happen. I planned to hopefully do one in February of 25. And let me take a step back. This isn't a, oh my gosh, whatever. It started with a buddy of mine who said that we want to get people of like minds together that most importantly want to help others. And let's just get an informal small group together that get together periodically and chat about what's going on in their lives and try and do something about it. Well, fast forward, now it has evolved into what is typically C-level. There's a reason. Talented, unique, diverse, have ideally had one or two cool events, cool successes, ideally even better, epic fails in their life. And I don't care if you're 70, 50, 30, or 20, chances are, maybe not on the C-level, but on the others, those are fairly easy to check off. However, the most important piece, so C-level, talented, unique, diverse, successes and failures. Check, 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 check. All right, cool. Have a pay it forward attitude that germinates from that. If you want to come to the event and be let me tell you how cool I am. Nobody cares.
Right.
They don't. And I'm not interested in that. And I've actually had a couple of folks that I have removed from the list because
I haven't got an invitation.
Dan, you're on the forever list. There are some folks who did that. And I recognize, you know what? Probably not right for this group. The only other thing is that I'm the only person that knows everybody that's coming. It's free. There's no cost. People have said, hey, I want to sponsor. Can you brand this? Whatever. No. It's whenever I get time, which is a precious commodity, to send out something, get it booked, take care of it, and generally bring between 60 to 90 folks. They've come from all over the country too, which is really bizarre, really bizarre. That's been circumstantial, kind of crazy stuff to the event. And the goal at the end of the evening, so if Dan shows up and there's 70 folks there, he knows me, and ideally he knows himself. That's 2 of 70. My job during the course of the rest of the evening is to Natalie, you said it, speed dating, for lack of anything else, get Dan in front of as many other folks as possible that evening. And I jump around like
It's a big job.
It's a ridiculous, like psychotic Energizer bunny. When I see Dan talking to Gloria for 5 or 6 minutes and maybe Natalie's coming in, cool, y'all chat for 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to break up that conversation And I'm going to say, Dan, I want you to go meet Frank. Gloria, you need to meet Sally. Natalie, come over here and meet Joe. And then literally break folks up. Because at the end of the evening, I send an email out to whoever was in attendance that has first name, last name, email, LinkedIn address. So that even if, Natalie, you remember, God, there's this really awesome woman named Gloria that I met that she seems dynamic and cool. Hold on. Oh, LinkedIn connect, reach out via email, whatever. Hey, met you at the event last night. Can we get together over coffee? Awesome. And the things that have come out from these gathering events, it's so cool. And that's why I'm just really kicking myself for not doing one last month. But it's really, really fun that I'll hear even years later. Oh, yeah, by the way, we met at one of your gatherings back in 2014.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. I will tell you there's something special about those gatherings because it is not, again, it is not a networking event. It is I love that you named it Gathering of Friends because everyone in there is your friend, which makes it completely unique to anybody else. And all you're doing is I'm introducing my friends to each other at the end of the day.
The only thing I'd change that is everybody there is someone who tolerates me. But they do know that it's coming from a pure heart, trying to make sure that they're going to get some value out of it.
And whenever there's always sayings that you are the makeup of the 5 closest people that you hang around with, so on and so forth. So when a group represents you and who tolerates you or your friends, that's already you've already filtered out the rest of the city, if you will. And now here's this quality group of people that know you and connect and at least see eye to eye on how you see the world. And so it is genuinely like the experience I had the last one I went, and I've only been to a couple, but it was just truly just warmth. It was just going there and warmth. Yes, I met a few people and I still have those relationships, but it just felt so different. I'm meeting Andrew's friends. And so that was really cool.
And the only, again, yes, I mentioned, it's very, very important for me to note that, yes, I know everybody in the room, but the event is not at all, there's no Andrew.
Right.
It is a gathering of friends.
Right.
I happen to be an initial point of commonality. And I say initial point of commonality. The intent is that folks meet, and again, from any type of diverse background. And I don't care how old or how young or where, I do not care. There's no other, I gave the 5 requirements, but the most important was if you have a pay it forward soul, welcome.
Yes.
Because you're going to ask somebody, I think what you're doing is pretty neat. I know somebody, or I'd like to get involved with that. Can I help you with that? And that's where the spark starts.
Yeah. If you start with the heart, which is pay it forward. And I guess I should have started with that, gathering of friends, but with the right attitude, which is
Sounds like a meeting of the minds because there has to be that
meetings of the heart.
Meetings of the heart. Meeting of the hearts.
Both. Because by the way, minds are important to be able to give you the direction to open up those bowling pin lanes.
Right.
But the heart is going to be with what passion and speed you're going to throw that and maybe what accuracy it's going to get to help make that happen. So mind and heart coming together with the right direction. Oof, giddy up.
It makes me think of a question for Gloria. When you approach the people that you're interviewing for your book, what are you saying to them? What are their responses? Because they're doing something for you in that they're being interviewed. But I was just curious what that process looks like.
So I've met a lot of people through LinkedIn and then just through referrals. So the ones that are referred, they're very happy they're like, yes, I'll do it. Sure. What time? And then on LinkedIn, meeting strangers, I think the approach that some are a bit hesitant, saying like, well, what do you want to know about my finances? I'm like, I don't want to know anything. I just want to know, I'm writing this book to just educate this generation and future generations, and your profile looks cool. And it looks like you've had a lot of success over the past 40 years, so I would love to learn from you. And that's when they start to open up, because I genuinely just want to learn from them.
That leads to a kind of, we got 15 more minutes. I wanted to touch on that because that is important. You being a business owner, running a couple of businesses and knowing so many people, what's the advice if you've got a 21-year-old out there right now that says, I've got this business idea? how would you start? What does your savings look like? You have any thoughts on that? We can all kind of chime in on that thought.
Go ahead, Gloria.
I think it depends on the type of business and how much capital or how much money you need to start it. There are some businesses where you don't really need to start. You don't really need any capital. Like if you, for example, like a popular one is like an influencer, right? You just need a phone, a working phone, and a social media account, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really depends on what type of business. If it's like service-based, like, well, do you need a vehicle or just thinking about those things? But what I like to tell people is if it's something that you can get started on now, just do it, because progress is better than perfection. Because some people are like, well, I need to get my business entity set up and I need to do this and that. There was a neighbor's daughter had came to me asking me about this. And she wants to start selling some goods at like a swap meet. She's like, so my mom said that I need a business license to do this. And I'm like, do you have things to sell? She's like, yes. And do you have time to go and set up? Like, can your mom take you? She said, yes. I said, well, just go. Start. You don't need all that, And then I told her, like, when you get to this level, like, come back to me and I'll be able to, tell you the next step. But just get started.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on the type of business. And like, I think a lot of it, some people think too much about it to get started. But in this day and age, I feel like for most things, you can just get started right away. And like, one thing I like to tell young people is, like dream big too. Like just because you dream big doesn't mean you have to start big as well, but just get started.
Kind of start identifying those pens in the bowling lane.
Yeah, like and
getting some direction at least.
Yeah, and like investing, like I said, like progress is better than perfect. And when you just get started, you can tell right away if you like it or not. So try not to invest too much, money or time or let these things hold you back.
Right.
Just get started.
Great advice.
What I'm hearing is starting a business is very much, and I agree with this, is very much also self-discovery. So trying to, like, I think I like this. Go get started to see if you like it. We give that advice all the time. See if you like it. And if you like it, then you start investing more into it and things will open up for you as that path happens. Once you've identified and once you've gotten, and once you know what you're doing, then that can take bigger investment, bigger savings, other things of that nature. Any thoughts?
I love the progress before perfection. Go do. The military has, and my dad's in the military, my son's in the military. I know a lot of folks that have served our country and very thankful to have them in my life. OODA loop. Has anybody heard of the OODA loop? Observe, orient, decide, act. So it's a really good piece where you observe your surroundings. You orient yourself, you decide, and then you act. And your OODA loop can be split second if you're in a combat situation, and that's where it's critically important. When you're in a business setting where you might have a little bit, of course, more time, you can observe what's going on around me. You can orient who's doing this, who's doing something similar. And if it's another business that seems like they're successful, I encourage everybody, go reach out to that business owner. Find him. You can find him quite easily. You said a working phone, Gloria? Absolutely. That working phone is a powerful way to get in front of folks, and you can do it easily. Ask them, hey, you've been doing this business that I'm thinking about getting into for 20 years. I'm your younger self. What should I do?
Right.
Can I learn from you? What can I do from you? And then once you've observed, once you've oriented, decide, go, just do something, fail fast. Because if you take too much time, inertia is going to set in, distraction is going to set in, and boredom, you're just going to stop. Go do. And if it doesn't work, awesome. Fail fast. You then know, cool, should have done that. What did I learn from that? Now act again and change. Most everything, our company, our company, 4 founders, we have and started with 0 debt, 0 outside money. And we've grown the business steadily for the last 8 years. And now we're a global entity. And it's a really cool story because 4 guys decided to come together
Mhm.
with shared values and beliefs and go do something.
Right.
And we've been doing it pretty well.
Mhm.
Screw up regularly, try and fail fast, but observe, orient, decide, act. Progress
Mhm.
before perfection.
Mhm.
I love that. I like to break it down to, in alignment with that, it's $4. It only costs you $4 to buy someone a cup of coffee,
Love that.
right? And who, well, I mean,
Mine's 7, but
I think it's closer to 6 now, Dan.
depends on where you're taking them. You pick the place. But no, I mean, for 7, like that's the investment.
under 10.
That's the investment on your education to go have someone that has done something for 20 years, 10 years, and done what you want to do. And you just go and be that sponge and absorb, and they want to give that out. And that's a great start to get started. The other thing that, again, just thinking about when you're starting something, because you can start something at different ages. But if you're incredibly young, I worked since I was really, really young, but one of my first jobs, I was 16. And it's getting, even though I might want to start my own business, I don't know what I don't know what I know. I don't know what I don't know yet. So going to work for someone, but not for this, I need this paycheck. And of course that's great, but I'm going to go figure out how business works. And just using that mentality. I think so much is lost sometimes when people are like, I need this job, or I need it. It's the way you look at what experience you're about to take on. And so I encourage people not to go just get any job, but go find yourself somewhere that you really respect how they run the things, and then go figure that piece out. I was recently reading a book, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it was about Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A, everybody knows and respects how well they run their business. And so the book was all about that. But it also taught about how they went to, I think, Ritz-Carlton and learned about that service model. So even a business is learning from another business, and how can we bring that service model into our business? And so it's like, it's always sharing and learning and growing from other things. So
I had the opportunity to listen to and hear at a great evening event, the EVP of HR for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Speak about their model and speak about their interview process. Yeah. If you want to hear something interesting, especially as a 16 or a 17 or 20-year-old individual, talk about the Chick-fil-A interviewing process. It's not, let's sit in the back of the restaurant, fill out an application, let's talk for 30 minutes, you're hired. You have to go through multiple levels of interview and a process, and go through their version of a personality profile, because they want you to earn it, and they want to know. They've learned how they can keep their employees in a very high turnover industry. So hearing about their process of how they've applied and learning from other large companies while staying true to their values, fascinating talk. This was 6 years ago. Still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Fascinating. Back to because wrapping up on this question about finance, I think that we also, I think it's good advice to at least understand what a spreadsheet looks like. So taking an accounting class, taking some YouTube videos. There's so much education out there, but understanding, how finance works, debits, credits, all of the kinds of things. So you can learn about yourself, but then at some point it is, resources, money is going to be involved. So terminology and how that works. I would imagine, like in your partnership, you have one of the partners is probably the strongest in finance, and they get
100%. Yes. Lanes. Everybody stays in their lane, yet the lanes intersect and they overlap. And having folks that have their own individual skill sets or areas of expertise, take and run with those. However, nobody is solely responsible for any one of those,
right?
Which is why being a sole entrepreneur is awesome. Board of advisors, having folks that can help you stay in your lane, and then eventually maybe looking to take on some other folks that can help you in areas which you know that you might not be as strong. Great way to look at it.
Can I share something about what I saw on Instagram? A really cool way to teach kids about finance.
Sure.
These parents gave their kids, I want to say $1 a week. They were little kids, like 5. And then every month they would ask them to pay rent and contribute to the food. And it was like $1 a month. And then whatever was left over, they had other opportunities to earn money as well. Whatever was left over, they taught them how to save and how to give back to something that was important to them. And it was just like such a rudimentary way to teach kiddos. But it was also so beautiful to know that there's families out there teaching kids like the value of the dollar or the value of what it costs to live in this world. So that when they grow up and get older, they're not like, wait, what? Like, this is crazy.
I think there's also and I love that. And I think this is a big point because I know that you run into it in wealth management because I used to run into it there is like money at times has been a culture of really taboo. You don't talk about it, right? And so but in business, you have to talk about it. And so there's this chasm that you have to like cross and the bridge that you have to learn to be able to be frank and understand and ask questions. To your point, the other thing about money is as a resource, and I love that you use the word that is not part of your principal thing, is because you can see it that way as a resource. It's less intimidating than because you're focused on other things, right? And this is just something that I've got to go do in order to accomplish this, Boy, where was I going with that thought? It went that way. So
money not being necessarily the center of all discussions.
Right. But also as you are developing self, if you're a solopreneur, as you're developing self, it is important, as you pointed out, to have those board of advisors and having at least one of them that's really good at money and understanding to help you teach that. But what I heard you say, and is hire people as you can. Because one of the things I think as entrepreneurs we learn early on is replace yourself as fast as you can so that you can grow. And so how I relate all that back to money is sometimes when you are in a place where you're like, I don't know how to grow and this and that, there's a lot of fears associated with that, but understand that you've got to let go of those fears and also think expansion, think abundance as you're growing.
If you're the smartest person in your business, you need other folks in your business.
You're in trouble.
I think about resources as well. Like oftentimes I'll have fear not knowing how it's going to work out, but ultimately it always does work out. And it often works out in ways that I never expect. So we have a plan and we try to be our own God, as I put it. But the minute you let go and trust, if you're spiritual, God or those around you or the smarter advisors that you put in your life, you'll be able to see that how you envisioned it isn't exactly how it went, but it will lead you to where you want to go.
You'll get there one way or another. Very cool. Well, thanks for being here. It was a great conversation. I love this podcast.
Yeah,
there's so much that we got out of this.
OODA. I learned OODA today.
Is it OODA?
Observe.
OODA loop. The
OODA loop.
OODA. OODA loop.
OODA loop.
Let's just look it up. It's all over the place. Observe, orient, decide, act. OODA loop.
OODA loop.
And I learned
Shaka.
All right. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap on season 3. Big thanks to Andrew Tull for closing it out with wisdom, warmth, and practical takeaways on leadership, mentorship, and authentic connection. Whether you're just starting your entrepreneurial journey or looking to deepen your impact, remember, clarity, generosity, and intention go a long way. And stay tuned. Uncharted will be back with more stories and sidekicks to help you navigate life's adventures. Until then, ask somebody, how can I help? And then show up with heart. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It helps others find the show. If you would like to share your thoughts or be featured as a Gen Z contributor, visit the show notes to learn how to get involved. See you on the next season of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life.